It's an Ask LOJ Friday edition. What do we expect at the trade deadline? Does Nurkic have a future? What did Keonte actually do in the offseason? And the growth of Ace Bailey. They're all in your questions next on Locked on Jazz. Bum 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 pow.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
How are you? I am David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen. And thank you for making Locked on the number one sports podcast network. And to the everydayers out there, you are the best. Today's show is brought to you in part by Game Time. Game Time, download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Speaking of making life as a Jazz fan better, shout out to the South American Los Jazz group that was at the game last night. They're here all week. I got to talk to some of them. I briefly said hi to their main guys from Uruguay when I was super rushed in the Toyota Center before the game the other night. Was hoping to see him again, but then another guy, I think it was Sebastian maybe, came over, who's a longtime Locked on Jazz listener. Just want to give him a shout out. It was a great vibe, super energy. They're adding a lot to the arena. We should learn from them. We should actually, we should find a way that the Jackals have it in San Antonio. We should find a way to almost have a Los Jazz section as a tribute to them when they go back to South America, where we keep the chants and the cheers going. It's an awesome environment. Tip of the hat to Ryan Smith, who I believe from where they were sitting yesterday, gave them the access to the Ryan Smith box to make it truly a once-in-a-lifetime experience to make the trip. Ryan has been amazingly consistent in everything he's done about user experience and fan experience, and he's made these group. And for those who don't know the backstory quickly, Los Jazz looks like about 30 guys who've come from South America that are Jazz fans, diehard Jazz fans. I mean, they saw Jeff Hornacek and were kowtowing him like when they saw him. And they were seated probably about 10, 12 rows behind the Jazz bench last night, maybe a little more, and just had chants going throughout the night and just a wonderful atmosphere and gave a vibe and a juice. I've always dreamed that the NBA would have a section. It's a little bit like the wall at the Clippers. My dream has always been that the NBA would have a game day section where it was close to the floor and that fans would be able to, they were only available for sale day of game. It's a money issue, obviously. Like, I would want it to be the first 10 rows behind the basket. And so on a night like last night when Victor's coming, like, people would be probably camped out at 6 a.m. to get those seats. And when LeBron and Steph were coming in their peak, now you probably end up with a lot of Warrior fans. So there's, what Steve Ballmer took care of. But anyway, it was just always, because I always wanted to have a little bit more of an energy and a vibe close to the action. And I also have always thought the one problem the NBA has is not enough fans get close enough to the action to really see how truly amazing and incredible it is. As someone who sits both courtside in Chicago and, our seats in Indiana and ourselves in Salt Lake, Oklahoma are great. And then frankly, in Denver, we're pretty far up and you don't feel the game the same way. The closer you are, you feel the game differently. And I've always thought it'd be great if fans could experience that. So anyway, side note, but Los Jazz brought a great energy. I just wanted to give them a shout out, talk about making the everyday better as a Jazz fan. It was a great atmosphere. They're super to be around. They're going to be here through February 1st. And tip of the hat to Ryan for making sure they have a once-in-a-lifetime experience. So, all right, that's the shout out to start the show. Hope you're doing great. What are we going to hit? Bunch of stuff. Some interesting questions about Euro passing. We have our section of everydayer clubbers, the Everyday All Access clubbers get their questions here on the show. And we'll start with a group. The first question I think everybody's mind on, NBA trade deadline is coming up. I believe it's February 4th. We're getting awfully close. What do we want is the way the question is asked, or in this trade deadline, it says wait, but I think he meant want. I don't know if, want it, wait, what I want or what I expect. It's an interesting time for the Jazz. So, it seems like your first answer would be, are you trying to improve and add talent at this moment? And that's a little tricky, right? Because we are still under the restrictions of the draft, of the trade the trade from Derek Favors in the draft pick. So we probably have to be a little careful about adding somebody on February 2nd or 3rd, whatever it is, and getting way better. Washington's done a nice job with Trae Young. We haven't seen him yet. The second thing is this: we're right now below the cap, and we also have this big trade exception, which actually goes into July. So if we don't use the trade exception at the trade deadline, it's not gone. It's the John Collins trade exception, and it's from when the date John Collins moved to the Clippers in that multi-team deal. So the thing we can do is trade because we have cap space. We can trade because we have a trade exception. However, if the player has time left on his contract, it eats into our cap space for the summer. And if we have real intentions of doing cap space in the summer, then we got to be really careful now. And there aren't that many teams who have cap space next year right now. It can change, but right now the teams that have cap space are the Brooklyn Nets have the most at about 50 million. We have cap space. Washington no longer does. I don't want to overplay it, but there is a level where if Austin Reaves and Peyton Watson, the two guys I've mentioned, are the big free agents that are going to move teams, Utah and Brooklyn could be the two teams. And, I don't know that somebody wants to come to Utah, but Brooklyn could decide they want Austin Reaves, and then we go after Peyton Watson, and Denver's in a financial bind and can't match, or vice versa. We go after, and you end up a little bit of where Carmelo Anthony got traded and then Darren Williams got traded, which was Kevin O'Connor's kind of move, is he was going to be the next one, knowing that Carmelo was the first move and whoever lost on that bidding. So you can play a little bit of that. I don't know that that's exactly how it's going to work, but there is Utah and Brooklyn have the most cap space. And really right now are the only two teams that have cap space. Now, if somebody else wants to do a sign and trade and things like that, there are other mechanisms by it. But that's the little thing about our trade deadline is if you go and make a deal now and get somebody who has multi-years on the deal, we lose that cap space if we slide it in. So that's an interesting little tidbit on when you're talking about this trade deadline. I don't see it as a particularly active trade deadline for the Utah Jazz. I was curious if you saw the game ball on Tuesday against Timberwolves with Will's milestone, Keontae's career high, and Nurkic's triple-double. The players gave it to Will. Now, I don't know if Will had given out a game ball prior, and I don't know if they always give out a game ball every night, but the game ball the players did go get it for Will. And it's an interesting thing. I have a friend who I go to the gym with, and she came up to me and she's like, oh my gosh, I sat behind the Jazz bench, and Will Hardy yells at these players all the time, and oh my gosh, how do they deal with it, and what would they do? And she was like, I could never handle that. My daughters were like, and there was probably a language issue there as well for times. And you're seeing that even though Will does do this and he lays into them, and boy does he coach them hard, that they are all with him, right? You see it on the 100th win. You see it with Yusuf Nurkic's post-game press conference the other day. You see it with Keonte, and boy, he coaches him hard. They know he's in their camp, and he's trying to get the best out of them, despite the fact that you see the yelling. And by the way, I think that some of the yelling is, you have to understand, one, that's the culture. And two, it's not it's come on, let's go. It's not you are an idiot. It's not directed in a way that it's personal. And I think that that's something that is worth noting. I may ask Will about it here coming up in a presser, just because I think it's interesting. I thought it was an interesting perspective from my friend at the gym who kind of said that. Do you think the Jazz will retain Nurkic through the deadline, re-sign him as a backup to Kessler and as insurance? So this is a great question, and it's on the top of everyone's mind right now because Nurk is brilliant right now, and our offense is fun. Though our offense had a bunch of fun numbers last night, but actually wasn't very good. I think we had an offensive rating about a 107 last night. That's not going to win you a basketball game in the NBA. So here's the thing on Nurk. And Nurk's been really open about how much he enjoys Utah and how much he did not enjoy. He had a terrible experience in Phoenix. I don't think he had a great experience by the end of Portland. And I don't know what Charlotte was like last year. I think it was immaterial. He is an unrestricted free agent. He is making $19 million right now. We're going to have to pay Walker in the offseason. Backup centers in the NBA don't make money. Okay? If you go look around the NBA, and most of the biggest mistakes that have been made by teams is paying backup centers. But backup centers don't make a lot of money in the NBA. If you go look at the teams that are managed well, I think Luka Garza is now Boston's backup center at $2 million. And I'm trying to find another good team. Denver overplayed not Zeke Naji at $8 million. It's been a problem for them the whole time, but they're paying Jonas Valanciunas, a backup center. He's making $10 million right now. The Clippers signed Brook Lopez in the offseason. Brook Lopez is making $9 million. That seems to be kind of the going rate for Jackson Hayes is the backup center, not a very good one for the Lakers, and Jackson Hayes is making $3.5 million. That's kind of depending what you're paying your center, that's kind of the going rate on centers right now. Orlando's got Wendell Carter, and they play Mo Wagner. $5 million is their backup center. So the first question's going to be, all of this with Yusuf Nurkic is going to be up to Yusuf Nurkic. So Nurkic has been very outspoken about how much he loves being in Utah, how engaged he is, how much he enjoys this, how great Will Hardy is, how Will has treated him well. Will has basically said, we have it, in the press conference yesterday, said, his approach with Nurkic has been, there's been a tendency in this league to find what a player doesn't do well and then harp on it. And he tries to talk about what the player does do well and harp on it. And that's where he is with Nurk. And he said that Nurk I thought this was an interesting comment. He said Nurk's incredibly self-aware and hard on himself. And Nurk is, what we've spoken about this, Nurk is not a good rim finisher. This is the weakness of Yusuf Nurkic, is that his offensive game is actually one of the most inefficient offensive center games when he uses his own possessions in a league where centers shoot 65% because they dunk and play at the rim. Nurk does not. And this is his weakness. And it shows up statistically, by the way. He also is great in a lot of ways, and he's not a particularly good defensive center. So this is going to be up to Nurk. Will loves him. He's a great pick setter. He's obviously a fabulous passer. He does a lot of things really well, and Will is focusing on the things he does well. Nurk's going to have to decide two things. One, how much money do I want to make? How much playing time do I want? I don't think he'll be able to get a starting job in the NBA next year. So then the question is, where do I want to be? And how much money do I want to make? And he's an unrestricted free agent. And so the Jazz will have to re-sign him. I don't think they have bird rights on him. I don't think it'll actually matter a great deal because I think they'll have enough exceptions and various things that they can sign him. But I don't think he's going to be a big money guy. So I think, is Nurk willing to come back to Salt Lake for a 2-year, $20 million deal or maybe even less after we pay Walker? The Jazz would love to have him. He would be a great backup center to Walker. He would be a great change of pace and times play 30 minutes of the game means it. If it matches better, like last night would be on a better game for him than it would have been for Walker. And they would love it. And Will would love it. The other thing is Nurk on the trade deadline. Well, there's some questions on that, and I'll get to that next as we continue on today's edition of Locked on Jazz. Friday edition of Locked on Jazz is brought to you by Murdoch Hyundai. I was just down there yesterday, had a really nice day, dropped off the Santa Fe and got the new Palisade, and it is the coolest car I've ever seen. I mean, okay, first of all, it has a massage chair while you're driving, and then it has a little thing that comes out so that your calf muscles are, like your calves are rested so you don't get tired driving. It's absolutely fabulous. All right, here's the deal. Anyone that mentions my name between now and the end of the month, if you go down to any of the Hyundais, in particular Murdoch Hyundai in Murray, you get free 1-year maintenance plan with the purchase of a new vehicle. It's about a little under $200 value. So if you go Murdoch Hyundai, in Murray, if you mention my name when you go down there, you get free 1-year maintenance plan with a purchase of a new or used vehicle. If you're looking for a vehicle right now, the Palisade is unbelievable. The Santa Fe was absolutely great. I hear the Tucsons are flying off the shelves right now. That was the word down there, that the Tucson is the hot car right now, and the Tucson hybrid. They were having a fun day yesterday was spicy tuna, signing a bunch of autographs, great atmosphere. Please email me first at dlock09@gmail.com. I'll get you set up with that VIP meeting, and I'll make sure that we mention the 1-year maintenance plan for you. So email me at dlock09@gmail.com. That's dlock09@gmail.com to get you your VIP experience at Murdoch Hyundai. Today's show is also brought to you by my friends over at Woodward Park City. Woodward Park City, they're doing amazing work to keep it fun and lively and the stoke factor to be up right now. Even with the lack of snow, Woodward is there for you, and it is rocking and fun for everyone involved. So make sure you head out right up on the top of Parley Summit. Woodward is there for you with all sorts of fun new ways to learn and experience the, let's call it, fun per foot ratio, just 20 minutes from the Salt Lake area. Woodward is experiential learning in a radically fun and safe environment, from parks to pits to ramps to tramps to all sorts of big and back end, and the indoor area is amazing. The Mountain Park season pass at Woodward are on sale now for $4.99, so you can rip hot laps with the posse right after school and into the evening. Maximize mountain time this winter at one of the best terrain parks in Utah all season long. They've got the snowmaking going. Even with a lack of snow, they are still ripping and having a great time. So learn to fly with the Woodward Tribe and seasonal and multi-week programs that build skills and confidence in a Stoke-inspired environment. It's just 20 minutes from Salt Lake, right over the top of Parley Summit. The Winter Mountain Park Season Pass is $4.99 to ride all season at one of the Wasatch's best terrain parks. Get absolute the best value out of your winter at the best place to maximize mountain time. It's Woodward Park City. Build confidence, develop skills, have a blast on the mountain with the winter ski and snowboard programs for all ages 4 through 17. Where is it? Thanks so much for the Ask LOJ questions today. You guys are the best. Thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network, and the Everydayers, the All Access program. Hope you're having a blast with it. Leaf Tuline's doing amazing jobs. I've got a bunch of great reviews from our All Access members who are saying they're loving it. We've actually had nobody drop out. Like, that's my goal, is to have 0 people ever end their subscription. That's what I want out of the Everydayer program. You can join the Locked On Everydayer program by going to lockedonjazz.supercast.com. In the All Access program, you get one-on-one texting with me. You get Leaf Tuline's bonus episodes on the college breakdowns and college prospects. You get ad-free Locked On Jazz. You get ad-free Locked On Sports Today. You get access to our exclusive Discord channel where we can have fun and enjoy ourselves outside of the world of X. You get access to the team merchandise, or the Locked On merchandise store that nobody else gets, and 15% off. You get a daily newsletter in your box every day. That's for $15 a month. So it's for 50 cents a day. Hopefully it's totally amazing. Everyone seems to be loving it. And you can get 2 months off if you do it for a year. That's at lockedonjazz.supercast.com. If you just want ad-free, and Locked On Sports Today ad-free, and Discord, that's $5 a month for you. Hope it's worth it for you for $50 a day. We'd love to have you involved. lockedonjazz.supercast.com. All right, let's get to our Everydayer program with questions coming in from them. We'll start with Taylor. What specifically did Keonte do this to make this leap, and can every one of our young players commit and do the exact same thing? So let me go with the second part first. I don't think everyone has that talent level, but the model is now set, right? If you're Isaiah Collier, you're Kyle Filipowski, and you're Cody Williams, and you're looking at what Isaiah Collier just did, and Bryce Sensabaugh improved as well, it's a lot easier to buy into the program. You know, Will Hardy's on the verge of having created the 2 of the most improved players in the NBA in 4 years, right? If Keonte should win it this year, he or Jalen Johnson, and already Lauri Markkanen. Like, yeah, you should believe in this program. If you're a young player on the Utah Jazz, you're believing in this program. So that's yes, it's massively important. Like, Isaiah Collier can want to go to LA or Atlanta all he wants in the offseason, but he looked at what just Keonte did, and it's like, oh, Keonte made $100 million plus this summer from his work. I think I'll do the same thing. Kyle has that makeup as well. So does Isaiah. Cody's been working incredibly hard. We've seen that improvement. Keonte, the first thing Keonte did was conditioning. The first thing, if you ask Chris Jones and you ask Keyonte George, the first thing they did, it was all based on conditioning. Everything was done at full speed. Everything was done full court. Everything was based on conditioning and then getting stronger and working on skills. But it was really largely, and then it was a lot of mental work. If you talk to Keonte, it was a lot of work with Dr. Kimmons, who is our sports psychologist. Dr. Craig, he talks about a lot as well. Those two working with him on the mental game. And then, you know, he's always been very talented with skills. Chris Jones is a fabulous skills coach. Chris Jones is a fabulous coach. This kid is going to be a star in the NBA when someone figures it out. He worked with him, and Keonte trusted him. And I think Keonte being in Salt Lake for 3 years added to the trust that made it happen. So, but it's interesting. If you ask them, the very first thing they did more than anything else was conditioning. Matt, what do you think the Jazz decide on Taylor, and what is your prediction for whether he makes it or not? So I'm giving Taylor, by the way, is under contract. He's extension eligible in the offseason. I would be very stunned if we give him an extension. So I think they'll give him the qualifying offer, which is $7.8 million, and he will then run to be a restricted free agent in the 27-28 season. I would be stunned if we do something else. I would be stunned if Taylor's group wants him signing off this season, and I would be stunned if the Jazz were to do something with him that was, you know, of a dollar figure that his agents thought was acceptable. I really am just committed that I am not evaluating Taylor this year. That injury is horrific. Taylor was behind on basketball knowledge when he got to us. I tell the story all the time about Jordan Clarkson, ISO, and Taylor running into him, right? He just doesn't, basketball instincts of time on the court and things of that nature, he's on a learning curve along with talent and skill. His shooting has done great. You can see, like, what was the thing he was able to work on? Shooting. Like, he had standstill shooting was what he could work on, and it's way better. So we've seen that he works and puts in the time. His work has been body rehab, and there's still moments. He fell out of bounds the other day on a balance play that I think was related. So I'm just not going to evaluate Taylor yet. And, I think he's got a long way to go. But that injury just really was a massive setback, and it's going to take him time. But I'm going to hold to not evaluating him. And when we do this every 10 games, when we do the 7 young players, I'm just giving him an incomplete every day for the whole year. When do the Jazz let's go to Ben. With the correlation, Ben asked a funny question yesterday while listening to ArenaCast. By the way, bring your noise-canceling headphones to a Jazz game with the Event Sound app. You get a no-lag broadcast. You can listen to us use one AirPod, talk to your friends. You also get all of our commercial breaks, which sometimes are funny, sometimes aren't. We used to do programming in there, but it was too hard. So we do some programming and talk to you about things and give you extra game plan stuff early, and then you kind of just get the flow of the game. What is the correlation between former Yugoslavian and passing instincts? It's a real archetype of a player. Is it the way the game is taught from a young age or different secondary sports? So I'm going to talk to Yusuf about it. He started late, so he started 16. So I do think it has to do with soccer, American football, or European football. I do think it has to do with soccer, like that they're playing a passing game as a young child. And I do think it's the way they play in Europe. That it's a 5-man game, and it's movement and it's passing, and they have grown up with this. But it is, Arvydas Sabonis was the first great one. He was a Lithuanian, not a Yugoslavian. But he was the first great European passing big that ever came to the NBA. And then from there, we've seen obviously Jokic and Nurkic, but we've seen many others, Domantas himself, Arvydas' son, along the way. So these European big men are fabulous passers, and American big men are not usually. So, you think of Dwight Howard and Shaq and some of the American bigs we've had, that they were not particularly great passers. So it definitely has to do with how the culture of the game is brought up and where it is from. But on the next road trips are easier for me to talk to players. And I'll do that with Yusuf on the next trip. Shane, ask LOJ, Giannis's behavior is getting stranger and stranger. Do you think he'll be dealt before the deadline? If so, where? Most likely. I do think that he's going to get dealt. I think he's going to get dealt either in the summer or in this trade deadline, but in one of the next 2 windows. I mean, right now they're a game and a half out of the play-in, and not playing well and getting blown out with regularity. I thought did they get blown out again last night, and then he lost it again? Giannis is unique, by the way. Like, Giannis is wonderful and the smoothie and all that stuff, but like the underbelly of Giannis is that it's not that easy. Maybe they got blown out yesterday. And Giannis, they lost to Oklahoma City by 20. I don't know if that, I guess that's getting blown out, but it's Oklahoma City. Giannis is not easy. I just would say that. Like, he's wonderful and delightful, and everyone wants to root for him, and he's, a great story, and he's a Disney movie. He's not easy. That's the one thing I would tell you. Noah, if you could wave magic wand and trade Nurk and filler for a non-all-star, who would you possibly go after? So you're trading, in this scenario, you're trading Nurk for a $19 million player. That's basically what you would be able to trade him for, who's a non-all-star who eats up cap space for the offseason. I'd have to understand just the premise of this deal. I don't have a player, so I'm going to take it a little differently. I'd have to understand why I'm making that deal for that player instead of taking that cap space and maybe getting that similar type player in the offseason. Daniel, Cody recently has been playing really good and has been working well on defense. Would you say his development has been a little slower because he didn't have the same physical attributes? Yes. Cody basically last year was a redshirt year. And had we not been awful, he wouldn't have played at all for us last year. And so last year, really, Cody's playing probably minutes he shouldn't have played, and he got desperate by the end. And this is the year he should be playing. And Cody's been really good right now. This is the player that I liked out of the NBA in the NBA draft right now. He's actually shooting it a little bit less and then shooting it a higher percentage, which is exactly what he did in college. He's still, his handle needs to get better, but his athleticism is real. We're seeing that. It's incredible. He's playing in transition. He's defending very well. No, this is very encouraging. This is the player that I liked, and this is exactly what I thought we were going to get. This is actually the player that I liked out of Colorado, and very similar. His game is what we anticipated. The last 9 games in which Cody has started, Cody is averaging 10 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 54% from the field, and 37% from 3. That's an NBA player. That would be great. And we won't look at his plus minus because he has the minus 60 in that stretch. All right. More Ask LOJ questions coming up. Draft questions. Keontae's future contract. More of that as we continue on today's edition of Locked On Jazz. Friday edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you by Game Time. You want your ticketing? You need a place to do it? The place to do it was Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply during the basketball season. Nothing like being in the building, the energy, the crowd, the big runs, all the great stuff. The Los Jazz Group adding energy. That's where Game Time comes in. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage back, making it incredibly easy to score amazing tickets, fast, simple, and without the guesswork. Browsing the Game Time app is straightforward, intuitive. Finding tickets takes just a few taps, and seeing the view from the seat before you buy makes it better. Plus, flip the little thing. Make sure you get all the fees up front. You know exactly what you're paying. And the zone deals allow you to unlock great seats at a better value. It's Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Tickets apply. Terms apply. Create an account. Redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your Game Time app. Game Time. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. It's a Friday. You know what that means? NBA happy hour with FanDuel is coming your direction. Here's the deal. It starts today. Fridays, every kickoff with NBA happy hour official pregame limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action from 6 to 7:30 Eastern. 6 to 7:30 Eastern. Go to the FanDuel app during happy hour. Always bringing something new. Boosts, bonuses, surprises. Easy to check the weekly special before tip-off. Make a move before the window closes. The timing is perfect. Right before the game, right before the weekend starts. Add a little extra energy to your Friday night before tip-off on the FanDuel app. NBA happy hour every Friday, 6 to 7:30 Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, a whole lot of Friday energy. It's NBA happy hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, let's get back to the questions rapid fire. My timing on the show is terrible today. Don't tell the boss. If we land the 6th to 8th pick in the draft, would you offer Lauri plus picks to move up to get AJ, or what would that take? I don't think you can do that. It's a great question. I mean, the question is, if Atlanta gets 1 through 3, is there a move to make that Atlanta wants somebody right away to go with Jalen Johnson? But I don't think you can trade for a potential MVP candidate. Do you think Nurk is part of the future? I think I answered this earlier. I think this is up to Nurk. I think the Jazz would love to have him. Will would love to have him. It's up to Nurk of where he wants to play, where he wants to live, who he wants to have coach him. He loves Will. We have an interesting thing going on here. The veterans love Will. Kevin Love is having a wonderful time here and enjoying it. Nurk is having a wonderful time enjoying it. Much more than I think they ever believed. George Niang keeps saying to me, I want nothing more to be here when we're put the pedal down and go for it. These guys would all come back. At what dollar figure? Does it work? Can they still be leaders? Can the young guys still grow when they're here? There's a lot of pieces to it, but the Jazz have created something interesting this year with much more than the years past, where the veterans are here. It was communicated well to them what's going on, and they're enjoying it, and they want to be here, and they like the kids, and they like being involved, and they're feeling value in it, and they're all at a stage of their career where, like, Nurk really can still play, but Kevin Love, George Niang, those guys, I think, have a real opportunity to try to do some stuff there. This is an interesting question we haven't delved into. What's Keonte going to earn? Keontae's agent's going to take my show from yesterday and throw it out in front of the Jazz and say, I want a max contract. I know Tony Jones has kind of said he's a max player. He's extension eligible this offseason. It's a really hard cap thing, by the way, because he was a late draft pick, so he's only $6 million on the books next year. But if the Jazz are over the cap and going to be over the cap and functioning over the cap for a while, they could do it. But it's a really hard cap game for the Jazz, because if you suddenly are paying him $30-40 million a year, you're eating up $34 million of cap space you'd have otherwise. So it's a complicated game for the Jazz on Keonte and the money and that. I don't have the answer on that. I would be a little hesitant to roll out the max right now, and his agents are going to show this season and say, we want the max. And both sides are right. And that gets to be an interesting little equation. Who are the leaders on this team? Seems like Lauri and Key's team are the guys showing most of the leadership. I think the leaders on this team, I think Keontae's the leader of this team. That trip to Dallas, he took with all the players in the offseason. Lauri is a quiet leader by effort and energy, and the way he leaves his body out there and just puts it out there every night. I think that's a model, but I don't know if it's leadership. And then there's just no question. You see Nurk put his arm around Ace. You see Kevin Love in his role. You see George Niang with the energy. They all have their different roles. Those veterans have been incredible for this team. And so I think those are the leaders. This is Key's team right now. You've said it in the past, players don't change when they change teams unless they're playing with a special player. How do you think two free agents you mentioned, Austin Reaves, Peyton Watson deal, considering they're playing with LeBron, Jokic, and Doncic? Great question. I think Austin Reaves will be fine. The numbers I love on Austin Reaves and why I love Austin Reaves are his pick and roll numbers. He's been one of the top 5 pick and roll players in the NBA for 2 of the last 3 seasons. I think he has a knack for that. I think he's bona fide. And then Peyton Watson is thriving right now without Jokic. And that's really where he's come into his own. I think he had 30 again last night. I'd really need to watch Peyton Watson more, but it's eye-opening, and it is the perfect type of player for the Jazz to go get, where the team is in a financial bind. He's a restricted free agent. You offer big money, force them to make a move, and see if they actually can do it. Because that's, that Denver has the Cronkies, despite being part of the Walton family, have never wanted to go into the luxury tax. The Jazz also very quickly could get into some money games here, but the idea of a lineup of either of those, of you start thinking about Keonte George, either Peyton Watson or Austin Reaves. I like Reaves better, probably because he's a better ball handler, but Watson's a better defender. Lauri Markkanen, Ace Bailey, and Walker Kessler, you have the beginning pieces, and then you don't need Bryce Sensabaugh, Kyle Filipowski, Isaiah Collier, and Cody Williams to become stars. You need them to fit in to the whole thing, and you're well on your way. We start to accelerate this, and it gets going. And then Austin Ainge starts to maneuver, and then you figure out what pieces work and where. That is Locked on Jazz. Thanks very much for tuning in. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll be with you postcasts after the game against Brooklyn on Saturday. Then I'll be back with you Monday. If you want to join the All Access Club and be a part of the Everyday or All Access, it's lockedonjazz.supercast.com. If you want to follow me on socials, it's DLock09 on TikTok, Instagram, X. And if you want to, again, that's Supercast, lockedonjazz.supercast.com. We now send you to the first ever national 24/7 YouTube NBA channel, Locked On NBA. Or if you're on audio, check out Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night.